Squarespace is one of the easiest web design editors in the world, I would argue. I've been building Squarespace websites since 17. And today I'm going to show you how it's done, and it's going to be the complete tutorial. So we're going to build a website from scratch together, and it's going to be done in the end. I'm going to show you exactly how we're doing it. You can follow along and build your own, or just keep watching. And my goal with this tutorial is to show you the whole experience of Squarespace, how it feels. And in the end, if you decide to follow along, you're going to have your own website set up. Let's go. As a little side note, if you want to support this channel, I have an affiliate link where you get a really good discount right beneath this video. And you can just start building with that. So check it out under the video. All right, let's go. For the purpose of this tutorial, I was thinking about what kind of website I should build. And I usually consult advanced creators on their strategy and all these kinds of things. But I know that there's probably a lot of like e-commerce people sitting here and watching. There's probably some service providers here and everything. So I decided to go for being a brand strategist for lifestyle brands, which I think kind of gets a little bit of all the worlds. So of course it is just a placeholder. You can do whatever you want. So I'm going to be kind of branding myself as a fictional brand consultant, and I think it's going to be really cool. And I'm just going to show you exactly what you need to do if you want to adapt the style, the branding, whatever, everything to your own website. So without further ado, let's go right in and jump into the Squarespace interface. Usually when you click on Squarespace, you're going to get on the Get Started button, which is up there in the corner, even on the homepage. And if you have any problem choosing the template, I have a special video, which is going to be up there, which you can check out if you're like, which template I'm going to use, I don't know. But basically just choose whatever is closest to your vision in the future. And you can have the full experience here. If you click on all templates, you can also decide to only look at popular designs, but it's usually actually not really close to what you should. I'm always a strong proponent for just like choosing the one which is closest to what you think, but not necessarily about the like industry or something. So, I mean, you can see there's a lot of templates here, and in the end, it's just about choosing what fits your brand best. And then when you hover over this thing, you can see it will go up, it will open, and then you can just click on start with this design. So you're gonna have this little bar down here, which either says, okay, how many days you have left of your trial, which is going to be longer than the 14 days if you get our extended trial, which is really nice. And otherwise, you're going to be warned, this site is private, only contributors can see it. And if you want to publish your site, that is first when Squarespace actually takes the money once your credit card and everything. So that means you don't need to provide any credit card information whatsoever. So you can just like chill, check it out and build it on your terms. And then only if and when you decide to publish it will Squarespace charge you, and you have to go and buy the subscription you want to buy. And I have a specific video about what package, what subscription you should choose if you want to check that one out. Before we build this website together, I am going to assume that you have your images ready and your website copy ready. If that's not the case, don't worry, there's going to be more videos in this channel coming about all these things. But for now, I'm just going to assume that you have the website copy, the number of pages, the kind of pages that you want, and the images ready. But I'm also going to provide you with some extra tips about like, what about stock photos and all these things if I don't have images, if I don't have a fancy brand photo shooting and so on. I'm going to show you all that stuff, and also how to prep it, because that is actually super important for SEO, and of course also for AI search in the future, because there's not so much security yet about what they're actually looking for. But chances are that if your website is well optimized for general search engines such as Google, it's also going to be liked more by AI, because it can kind of scrape it as well. But of course, we don't know as much as of this time, but let's see. So I guess it's always good to just follow the best practices from the start. As of this moment, I advise you to have the following: the website copy, so basically the text for all of your pages, all the images, And the third thing is that you should take the time to really optimize the images. That is a clear beginner mistake that a lot of Squarespace newbies do, is they just take the images, they do the huge upload, it's going to be super many MBs, and then it's going to be a very slow website. And that is actually part of the kind of myth that Squarespace websites are so slow. That's because people don't optimize their images before. So what you should do is you take your image, you change the title into something which is kind of your keyword. So for me, I would do something like brand strategist, lifestyle brands or something, all with the dashes in between, and save it. As of this date, Squarespace has just come out with WebP formats. Before it was only possible to go with JPEG, so that's really nice. You're going to have one of the fastest loading image capacities on your website. So for now, you just change the kind of type, the title, into something which is kind of your keyword, and then all the other stuff with the AI, else, text and everything, we're going to do this in the end. But for now, before you upload everything, you change the title and you change the size. So usually for an image, which is going to be the whole kind of breadth of your screen, it's going to be about 2,400 pixels ish. And if you just want to have it like this, like somewhere on the page, let's say less than half the page, little like not square, maybe not horizontal, but vertical image, it should be like 800 pixels ish wide. And that is a thing that you should kind of do before you upload the images. In the end, when you have changed the size, you should still have the general size of the image compressed, which means quality should be downgraded as much as possible. And of course, it still needs to look good. And of course, all the information that the image usually has. Like if you upload an image from your phone, usually it says where it was taken, whatever, all this information. You go to tinyjpeg.com or to tinypng.com. It's basically the same provider, I think. And you can just upload your images there and they're going to be compressed, which is really nice. So this is the website tinypng.com. You can also use tinyjpeg.com. And now I'm going to upload my image, which I have changed the title and I've made it smaller. And then you can just drop it here and it's going to say, okay, it was 2 megabyte and it will go down to 354. I actually advise you to come as close as possible to 150 KB, so kilobytes per image. This actually is doable if you, for example, have a Mac and you go just open the image and kind of export it in a lower quality. So this would actually be too big. So I'm kind of redoing it to get as close to 150 kilobyte as possible, because this is not going to be a big image. It's just going to be one image, which is going to be on the right hand side. So look at this image here. It is just going to be like a small image on the side. So I don't need it to be super big. So I'm going to kind of resize it again. All right, let me check this out. So now you can see that the original that I uploaded is already 588. Let me see how fast or how low they can get it. Okay, not much smaller. That is interesting. So I would have to optimize a little further, but for now I'm just going to download it. But let me tell you that it should be small. So if you're having something like 2 megabyte or something, it's way too big. Get it as close to 150 kilobyte as possible without like losing the quality, of course. When you're in Squarespace and you have everything prepped, so you have the images, you optimize them before you start, and you did all the website copy and everything is done, then the fun part is gonna start. And the cool thing is actually that you're in the Squarespace interface and the thing is basically built up. So I'm going to give you a short intro into what the interface actually means, how you can work in there and all that stuff. So on the left hand side, you can see the menu. So you can actually choose and have the sidebar customized. So you can choose like, I don't want to have this, and this visible, which is very nice, but not necessarily in the beginning. And I'm going to show you all these parts, what they actually can do and how you can change all that you need to build up your customized website, because it's actually really easy. But Squarespace has kind of hidden things which you don't really see where they are in the beginning. So if you follow along, I'm going to show you exactly where everything's hidden. But for now, just as a little mini intro, on the right hand side, you can see the live website. So this is actually, you can see this like box. This is your live website as it is out there. Of course, right now it's not out there yet because I haven't published it, but after you have published it, this is actually how it is live. So if you do edits right here, it is, and you click on save, it's going to be live right in the moment where you click on save. So bear that in mind. You can, to have the full, I'm just going to get this a little bit smaller. If you click on this little arrow on the upper corner, you can see that you can also have it on the full view. So this is how a person online is going to see your website. And if you close it again, it's going to be the interface where you can work in. You can also see desktop and mobile view, which is really cool because then you can see right here, and you can also click and move in the website as if you were a live visitor. So this is basically a live preview of your website, which is really cool because then you can navigate as if you were a normal user of your website. This is basically a very minimalistic site for now, but we're gonna make it nice. But first, let me show you what there is in Squarespace. So under the point website here, you're gonna have pages, styles, assets, SEO, and this is actually interesting because this is changing all the time. So if you have different words here, don't worry, because Squarespace does a lot of changes right now, like a lot of changes. So things are kind of move around, and if you don't find anything that I'm gonna show you in this tutorial, just click on the search bar and then you can just type it in. Also, if you use a different language, of course, you can just like type it in because that's the easiest part. And sometimes, even though I work in this thing all the time, I have a web design agency, I have courses and all that stuff about web design, sometimes they just change stuff and then I have to use the search bar. So don't worry if you don't find anything right away, because sometimes they just move around, which is actually a good sign because they keep changing things and improving. So that's really good. Anyway, if you look into pages, you're going to have a full list of all of your pages, which you have right now. It's interesting because right now I only have 3. Of course, your website is probably going to have more unless you choose to have a one-pager. Then you have styles, which is also very new because it used to be only here, then it was here again, then it wasn't here. So the same way to come to get to the styles is by clicking on this little mini, what is it? Like a drawing. It has this drawing look on the side styles, which is up here. And if you have this, you go to exit. And then you have assets, which is pretty much like a library of all the images and videos you just uploaded to your website at some point. Then you have SEO, which also is a pretty new view actually. It used to be hidden, so you could only find it through the search or through the settings and all that stuff. Right now they just put it here. Then you have products and services, which is only relevant for you if you use the web or digital product shop function on Squarespace. You have content and memberships, same. It's only important to you if you have like memberships or blog content, which you have behind a paywall. Then you have scheduling, which is only important to you if you use the tool Squarespace Scheduling. And that is actually for you if you need something like a calendar, for example, if you're a yoga studio or something and you want to have booked appointments through your website. But of course, you can also use different services such as Calendly or TidyCal or something. Then you have donations. Same thing, only relevant to you if you take donations on your website. And you have invoicing if you choose to use Squarespace as your invoicing service. Squarespace has a lot of other things. They have email campaigns. So if you choose to send your newsletter through Squarespace, you can do that. It's a little extra costs. And the same, by the way, is for scheduling. So it costs a little bit extra. And also the products and services, the selling through the web shop, through your Squarespace website is requiring a specific package that you use to be able to have these selling functions. Contacts is only important once you collect something through either sales or email marketing. So that is where your contacts are going to come from. But analytics is important for everyone, which means you can very much follow traffic sources, keywords through Google, what your site is searched for if you have connected it in the end, and geography and all that stuff. And finance is basically only important if you have a web shop or sell digital products through your Squarespace website. One important thing is the settings, and I would actually advise you to do that in the beginning because then it's just like all nice and clean. Some people choose to do it in the end, but I always advise you to do this in the very start. So, I mean, site availability, that is interesting. It's private, of course, because you haven't bought the subscription yet. But the interesting thing is in Squarespace that you're actually allowed to have the page set up password protected and set it online. So you can basically, it's also interesting if you're a designer or something, or do it for other clients or for friends, whoever, or for a new thing and you want to just get feedback. You can have your new site live, but password protected to show other people before you really set it public. But to get it public, you can already see they have this little window coming up. To make it public, you actually have to pay the subscription. It says upgrade to publish. And of course, that's where Squarespace comes in and wants your money. And by the way, if you're close to publishing, you use the code Victoria10. That's my affiliate link. And then you can get a last minute discount on the checkout if you want. Victoria10 for a 10% discount. So this is the website. And one thing that you should do in the beginning is to set the site language, which is really important because that is going to influence, of course, how everything's shown, the currency and all that stuff. The currency can actually be changed in the e-commerce settings if you don't want to have like US dollars, you want Canadian dollars, euros, whatever. And then the regional settings are also super interesting because this is actually a thing which is different from kind of zone of where you are. So typically I'm in Denmark right now, and we use the metric system, which is basically the measurements and everything, which is like kilos instead of ounces and all these things. But of course, if you're in the US, you have to use the imperial system. So you should know what you use. And then you have to use to choose the country and the time zone, which is relevant for all that stuff, which is kind of the blog post info and so on. Next thing is cookies and data privacy. Usually I do this in the end, favicon and all that stuff in the end, but you can already see there's a lot of stuff that you can do. And this is actually a pretty new thing, which is image settings. It's very, very new. As of this recording, I think it's a few days old, which is great. And there you can choose that you have the WebP image format toggled on, which means you get the fastest loading kind of images. So it will automatically turn your images if you upload them in JPEG or some other format into this WebP image format, which is kind of the highest standard or the most advanced standard in the web design world right now. There's some others, but that is the more like mainstream one. So you should definitely leave this toggled on. And if you have a website already, you should go back and toggle this on if you haven't done so yet. Another thing in the settings, which I would recommend already actually in the start, is that you click on domains and email and click on domains. And the funny thing is that you can, of course, you don't need to have your own domain for now because you can just have it in the internal domain. But Squarespace automatically will give you a random domain once you set up your trial. It will be like something like lemonpineapple.squarespace.com, whatever. You can see this is Finch, whatever. This, I would advise you to do that in the very beginning, to choose your own thing, because it will, if you do any mistake and you have like some link problems, everything, people will see this internal domain. Usually they should not see it, but sometimes glitches happen. You do some mistake with the linking, whatever, and people will see your internal domain. And it's very not good looking if your domain is called Finch Cobalt GXM7.squarespace.com. So I would definitely go in here right now and change the internal domain, but just know that this is actually just the kind of back-end domain. So this is the domain you're on when you work in your website and all that stuff. But as I said, it can also be reached by the public. So I would always advise you to change this. And it can be the similar, like you can just put the same thing that you have in your domain. So if your domain is first name, second name.com, you can just like put first name, second name in here, and then it's going to be first name, second name.squarespace.com. Okay, so for this purpose, I just put Victoria Brand Consultant as a placeholder, and then I'm going to confirm. It changes right away. So that's perfect. Back to the settings. There's some more stuff about selling, brand marketing, and all these things. And for now, I actually do not advise you to use the brand identity and all the AI stuff because it's just not as good. So if you're a ChatGPT or a Claude user, it's still better as of this day, but it might get better at some point. So you don't need to do that. And all of these things we're going to do in the end. But if you want, you can already do this SEO appearance in the start. And all the other stuff is basically irrelevant for you, except for billing, because there is the kind of space where you can find your invoices later once you decide to really set up your Squarespace website and buy the subscription. All right, now we finally start to build your website in Squarespace. And usually there's one step which all kind of professional brand and web designers usually do, and that is to kind of build a mood board for your business. I'm going to skip this step for this tutorial because it's going to take a long time just to build the website in itself. But just know that a lot of people choose to have a mood board, which makes it easier for you to kind of be sure on what it should look like and all that stuff. So if you wonder what a mood board is, you can just basically go to Canva or any other cool tool and just Google it, or Canva, search it. And you're going to see that typically a mood board, which you're also going to use for your website, has some imagery so you can kind of see the vibe, the feeling which your website should get across, the color scheme, and sometimes even some fonts if you already have that before. There's a lot of people who want to work without, but I find it much easier. And I think a lot of beginners especially have a much easier experience building the website once you have the mood board. So for example, if we just choose this as a little tiny example, this would be, okay, now we know what style it is, we know the color palette, and then you can also just choose it for your website. The most important thing is that if you want to do that, you should have a color palette in your mood board and some imagery. And in Squarespace, usually you work with 5 colors, one super light one, which is usually white, one super dark one, which is usually black or like very dark gray, and then 3 colors in between. So keep that in mind if you choose to build a mood board. But this, as I said, is not the tutorial about building a mood board. For now, you can just choose one of those and do it in Canva or whatever. But you can also choose to do it without. But most people have an easier time designing their website with a mood board on the side, because then if you have a big screen, you can just put the mood board on to the left and then your Squarespace window to the right, and you can kind of see, okay, does this match kind of the vibes and the style that I want to get across? So that is a little pro tip from me here. If you do have a mood board and a color palette, or maybe you got something from an external brand designer that you hired, or you just think about it, the first thing you usually do is to go into styles up here. And you can see that there's some themes, which is kind of the whole thing, the whole combination of styles that you chose. There's the fonts, the colors, the buttons, and some miscellaneous stuff down here. In the font section, you can either choose a pre-made font pack, which is, this is like sans serif, serif, or mixed. So if you choose to click on it, you can see it will already do it in live, which is really cool. But if you don't click save up here, it will not save it. So if you didn't see that one up here, if you click on save, it's going to save. So as long as you're just trying here and not click on save and just click exit, it will not kind of ruin your page. But if it will go on the whole site and kind of change the look. So be careful once you change the thing, because it's going to be a global change for the whole website. So here you can see all these beautiful things. And of course, if you have a font already before that, then it is pretty easy, because then you know what to do. But if you don't have a font, you can kind of test a little bit around and try these font packs. Otherwise, you can also have it through headings here and click on the font and go to all the thousands of fonts they have. So you can see there's so many. So this is the header font. You can choose whatever. There's, I'm not sure if it's hundreds, thousands, or how many, but it's a lot of Google fonts and Adobe fonts, and they're already integrated for free for you in Squarespace. So this is the font. You can choose the weight, the style, the line height, which is how far they're kind of apart from each other. You can do text transformation, such as capitalize or uppercase or none. And then you can choose the sizes of the headings. So here you have heading 1, 2, 3, 4. And actually my advice is always to have this one page which you use as your, you can use it like, you can call it brand board or style manual or kind of vibe vibe test or whatever you want to call it. And my advice is always to just have one page. That was a bit quickly. I'm going to redo that and show you what I did. So I went on plus, took a blank page, which is here, changed the name, clicked on edit up here, added a section, went to add a blank section, and then clicked on add a block, and then I'm gonna add some text blocks, because now if you're gonna do this is my beautiful headline 1. In this headline 2, I tell you more about the stuff I do. Headline 3 is smaller but still mighty. Oh, and there's one more. So the cool thing is that it is like a little Microsoft Word editor up here. So you can go to heading 1, make it a bit bigger. Heading 2, heading 3, and heading 4. So this would be kind of your heading block. And then you can do the same thing and do it with, I clicked on the duplicate, and then I did the same with paragraph 1. Of course, you would do some other text. Paragraph 2, paragraph 3. So then you can see the sizes, and you can kind of play around and test it a little bit. And the cool thing is that you basically can do it without needing to go through all the other pages. So now if you go to the site styles and you want to change the sizes, you can see right away, does that look proportionate to each other? Like, shouldn't this be a little heavier? Like, whoa, how big do you want to go? And then you can also see on mobile how this kind of looks. If you choose to do it like very big, headline 2, whatever, headline 3, and it very much depends on the font. So if I were you, I would change or choose the font first and then do all the sizes. And then you can experiment, and I'm going to click on save to have it for later. So that is the fun part, and it's really nice because then you can just like click around. There is a way to have more than 2 fonts. So the default on Squarespace is basically right now that you have 1 font for headlines and 1 font for the normal text and paragraphs. But you can upload own fonts, or kind of, if you don't like the fonts that there are, you can have like your own fonts with a little bit of CSS uploaded. And you can also choose to have various fonts. But as a beginner, usually it's much better to just have 1 font for headlines and 1 font for paragraphs. But just know that it is possible. There's a lot of stuff that is possible on Squarespace once you get a little bit closer to the like advanced stuff, but for now I would advise you to just like keep to the format that they kind of offer you in their default version. So that was the font part. Now we're getting to the colors. So this is an interesting thing because Squarespace basically has the system where you have 5 colors, which is the global color palette, which it is called, which you can see up here. And that is the thing which is basically overriding all the stuff about the whole website. So if you change any color here, they're going to change down here in all the themes and on all the things. So if I choose to kind of change this black here in the palette, you can see here the black one, or it's almost black. If I do it red, everywhere where this color is used is going to be red. So in Squarespace, as I said, usually you choose 1, which is the lightest color, 2, the darkest. So this should be something white-ish or beige or whatever you want to use. And this should be something blackish, like the darkest one should go here. And then you put the others in the middle. And if you have no idea, you don't have a color palette, you don't have a branding, you don't have anything, you can just go and choose some, which is really cool. So there's presets, and I'm going to actually go to a page where you can see a little bit more because it's a bit boring to kind of change the color on something where you don't see anything. So I'm going to change the color and go to edit palette and just go to this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. And as I said, if you have your color palette and mood board ready, you don't need to do that because then you can just click on the color, change your hex code, which you usually get. If you don't know what the hex code is and how you get it from a color, you can just Google it, get the hex code. It's pretty easy. But as I said, if you don't have any colors, you can click yourself through these color palettes, check it out how it looks. Or you can even choose, if you already have some images, to upload an image of yours, or to have 1 color which you think is nice. So you can say, okay, I like this one. And then you have the monochrome, complementary, and some other color schemes. But for example, if I know that, okay, I already have one image, which I did before, I have my fancy brand consultant image where I'm on, it kind of suggests these colors which go along with this image that I have. I find it a little bit too boring, so I can kind of go and choose some other stuff, or I can just do like a very sleek version. So there's actually a lot of ways you can go about the colors. As I said, it would be a whole new video just to go into like, you know, color theory and all that stuff. So for now, we're just going to go with the very boring. I'm calling it boring, but it doesn't have to be boring. Disclaimer. We're just going to go with this scheme, and maybe I'm going to change it later. But just know that this palette is going to be global. So if you change anything here, it's going to be changing everywhere. The single sections of your website, so every page of your website is built of multiple sections. It is actually pretty interesting. If you go in here, you can see this is one section until the blue part, and then there's one more section here and one more. And in between, you can always add more sections. So if for example, click here, I can either add a blank section, or I can use saved sections if I have already saved some, which we didn't in this tutorial, or you can have some pre-built ones. So they have like some really cool designs, which you can use, for example, like this. And then it's just gonna put this here on your website. And if you click save, it will save. And then you can also check it out how it looks on mobile. So you can always do some stuff on mobile to really check out how it looks. If you have the section, you can choose to either change it yourself, or of course you can build it from scratch. So you can start with the pre-built sections, or you do a blank section, and there you can add blocks. So there is a really cool way how Squarespace works is that you have sections, and then within the sections you have all that stuff. So you can be like, hey, I want an image. You know, I did my cool prepared image from before, which is here. And then I want some button here, and so on. As I showed you before, the easiest way is basically to do all that stuff, especially with the buttons and all the fonts, in your brand board manual and that stuff. So you can just like either make it longer or do a new section. Usually I do new sections, but for now I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to do the blocks. And the interesting thing about buttons, for example, is that you have multiple ones. So you can have primary, secondary, and here is tertiary, and there are different colors. So this is also one more thing that you can change here. So you can click in the buttons and change the primary button, the font, the shape, the outline, the padding. Padding is what is actually the kind of space between how much is like between the copy and the borders. You basically can look at all this stuff. And one pro tip is also to do, if you have this section, you can do a duplicate of the section. And then, because I showed you here, you have all the, if you click on colors on the arrow here, you have the color themes. So these are all the themes that you can use for your website. And every single section has a colors theme, and you can customize it like crazy. So this is like lightest one. And if we now want to see how all these fonts and everything looks on a different section, you can edit the section here, go to colors and choose a different one. We can go to bright one, which is interesting because it's dark. So let me go into the styles here. And now you can go and see, okay, this is bright one. You click on bright one, and now you can see within the theme of the section, you can change everything, which is crazy. So you can, for example, say only on this section theme, which is called bright one, I want to have the heading in a custom color, which is light pink, like a millennial pink or something. And just know that if you change a color to something which is custom, it's going to stay the same once you change the global color palette. But if you choose something from the palette, of course, it's going to change if you do. Like, it's going to keep changing. So just be careful with all the customization. Usually for beginners, like, I advise not to do too much customization, but you know, there's so much you can do here. So for every single color theme, from bright one to darkest and everything, you can choose everything. You can do different background colors, all that stuff. But just keep in mind that there is actually a reason why Squarespace does work with all these different sections. So that is really important for you to know. But look at this, it looks great. And now we can also say, okay, now it's getting a bit boring. Let's try out a little different stuff here. That is really easy to just do it from the start. And let's just keep this one for now as a little reference. So this is how you do your basic brand setup. So you have chosen your colors, you have chosen your fonts, you have chosen the button style, which in this case we're gonna do some pre-made, like you can choose some pre-made packages, but you can also just do it very custom in your own way if you click on the specific like first, second, third button types. And now what we're gonna do is go into the actual content of the website. So there's some more things that you can style, but for now, for this tutorial, like animations, image blocks, and all that stuff, you can definitely try that out. And I would actually advise you to try that out in your brand board, or what you call the vibe checker. What did I call it? Style manual, vibe checker, whatever you want to call that page. And there you can do a lot of testing and optimize everything until you really like it. So that should be the first step. Now you're done. So you have the basic style, everything's great. And now you want to build out your pages, which is amazing because now you can really get started. Most people start with a home page, which I usually never do because I think it's actually one of the most difficult pages because it has to be like, you know, like a teaser, a good trailer for it has to be like a good trailer as in the movies. You're like, okay, I have this and that. So I think it's actually much easier to do the about page, for example, as the first thing. So in Squarespace, it's interesting because it's called main navigation and not linked. And it's a little bit misleading with a not linked because these pages can totally be linked. They're just not in the main navigation on your website. So that is really important for you. So it doesn't really matter if you put, if you click plus here or there, it will just have a new page added, but you can very easily take it out of the menu. You can see it disappears here. And if I take it in, it will come back in here. If you want to edit the site header, you just click up here and it will ask you to add elements, which we just saw how it's done, and edit design is here. You can choose to have the logo left, right, the middle, and everything, like how much should be the link spacing, like how far should they be apart from each other, how far should elements be apart from each other, and elements is if you decide to add a button or something. You can add button height and everything, and this height, for example, is very minimal, like it's very small. You can have inset or full width. And of course, you can choose which color theme you want to use for this one. You can either choose like your own color, or you can take it from a theme. So we could basically go for whatever the theme gives us for now, but you can also have your own color, opacity, blur background, everything which you want. So let's just go for this for now. This is how you edit the navigation, and what is in the navigation, you just pull here and there. Some people always ask me, like, how do you get the home button up here? And basically when people click on your logo or on your title, then people will get to the home page. So if you click on edit header, you can also click on your logo and upload your own logo here, and even have a different version for mobile. If you don't have a logo, you can just have it here, choose the site title and change the name of the website right here. You can just like click it. You should even do that anyway. So I'm going to call it, now that's a very, very creative name, Victoria Brand Consultancy. You're going to have a better name, but this is just for now. And the same thing applies to the style. So if you don't like the font or think that the font should be a different one, which it usually should be not the same as your headliner, you go to the fonts and you go to assign styles. And then you're like, whoa, I don't know what it is. You kind of click here and click on this area, and you're going to see site title right now pulls the font out of the heading. Mobile site title is the same. So you can just click on here, go to style, custom. And if you don't have a fancy logo yet, you can just take a fancy, nice font like this if you're very... Now that is where a brand board comes in very handy, because you shouldn't just mix and match random fonts and styles that don't fit each other. So you can see there's so many of these really cool fonts, and you should really kind of not just mix whatever together, because it should look cohesive. So That's why I said take the half hour or 2 hours, whatever it will take you to build the mood board before you get started, and just mix and match all that random stuff. So for this purpose, I'm going to go with this very fancy black letter, and I'm going to make it a very modern and cool website because I'm marketing to very millennial hipster clients. That's decided for now. Okay, so I need to add a little millennial pink in there as well. So you can see, you can spend hours in these kind of things, but I'm not gonna do that for this tutorial, but you can basically spend the whole day choosing the perfect colors here. All right, I'm gonna show you how to build a page. We're gonna take the about page, but of course you can build in this, like in the same kind of way, you can build all of your other pages. So we're just gonna do a blank page and call it the about page, which is going to be very empty and very new. So my advice is always, if you have no idea what to do, either you go to edit and just choose sections from the saved sections, or from the kind of, here is an about page section, for example, or you go to other websites that you like. It shouldn't be your competitors, you shouldn't copy anyone, but you can just like look for inspiration. And what I like to do is just like screenshot a whole lot of websites. I'm like, oh, there I like the footer, there I like how they place the image over the whatever. And you just have this inspiration list, which you can do if you have a lot of more time, which I don't have in this tutorial. And you can also just draw it. Like usually I'm just sketching it on a piece of paper, very like, look at this, I have one here. It's not pro, but it gives you the whole idea. Like there should be an image here and up there. It's super interesting to just do it like that. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we're just going to take this very nice opening part. Then we're going to do I want some more text. Yes. And then I'm going to add another section with a nice quote of myself. Like this. And then I'm going to edit this section and give this one another color. And I'm going to use my fancy millennial pink, which is nice. And here you could also argue that the contrast is not good enough. So I'm just going to put I should put a quote in between in a very dark color, like this. Awesome. If I click on save, it's saved, and then the mobile view, if you choose to do the pre-made things, is going to be pretty decent. You can always change it and make it a little smaller and everything. And then the cool thing is that now you can just, like, as in a normal Microsoft Word doc or whatever, this would be your way to just type in your copy or copy paste it from your Google Doc or whatever, and wherever you did. There is a way to kind of let the AI do it. So you can click on these little mini ones, and there it will basically give you some AI suggestions. But as I said in the beginning of this tutorial, right now it's not that good. So if you have a ChatGPT subscription or a Claude or something, it usually will get you better results. Just my 2 cents. But it might get better. So it might get better. This is the thing. It might get better. But for now, I would just take your own stuff. So for this purpose, I've just done a random copy. You're going to do much better. But I'm just going to show you how it works. And you can see that this is actually an image block. So there's a lot of blocks. You can see if you just hover over the block, this is a text, this is a text, and this is an image. If you click on the image and have this little edit pen here, you can see that's a demo image. You can delete that and just add an image by either uploading a file, select from your library if you already have some, or browse stock images. But I would not take the stock images. They're usually from Unsplash because they're usually too big. So you should always go exactly to the stock photo site that you want to go to and choose from there, and then optimize the images as I showed you, and then upload them optimized already. So for now, we're just gonna take this very optimized image of mine, which is gonna be here. And you're gonna see, whoa, it's very big. You can see this little white circle here, which is the focus point. So you can say, whatever happens, this should be in the middle, or this should be in the middle or whatever. So that is very interesting. And very helpful if you have a mobile view where something has to be cut or something. In design, you can either have it fit, which means it is going to fit, it's going to keep the dimensions of the image within the box that you give it, or you fill the block, which is this, or you use a shape, as for example, this, or this, or this, or this, or this. So you can do a lot of cool things without any code or something. So you can just like have yourself sitting up here in the corner in this Easter egg shape, or you just leave it as it was before. So now you saw what happens if you don't click on save, everything's gone. So I'm just going to redo it and get my picture up here, but now it's already in the library, which is great. And you can see if you put it multiple times, you only need to do it once, because otherwise it is just too many times and you have it all these times in the library. So I'm just going to put it here. All right, so this is what it looks like. And then of course you have to adapt it a little bit. Like for example, you can see here, it's a bit weird because there's just a little bit of me and a lot of window. So you have to kind of play around a little bit, like how it should look like. And then you can adapt it, put a little bit here. Maybe you don't want to have it crossed over, put it a little longer. This looks great. And then you can go and save and exit. So like this, you go from section to section to section and just like build the whole thing. And it's actually really cool because then you can just like do stuff that you like or delete it again. And one little pro tip is that if you have a section where you're not sure if you want to need it, if you're going to need it or not, you can push the little heart and that will let you save the section. If you're not a circle member, which is a pro member, then you're going to have access to this site. So you can save it for your own site, which is great. And then you can use it on another page, for example. Let's say here, you want to add a section, you go to add section and you go to saved sections and you can have your own little section, which is saved. So by that, you can just do the whole shebang of your... So by that, you can go through all of your site and just like collect cool sections, do that, and just go through everything. So that is how you build the pages, which is really nice. And of course, whenever you have no idea what to do, you can just go. And there is a way to just like have the saved sections used. Now, we went through normal pages, but there's of course more. So if you click on the plus, you can see there's not only blank pages or page layouts, which is also kind of helpful, but not too much. I mean, the sections are much better, but there's always more. And there, for example, is the way to add a blog or a store or a portfolio or events, videos, a course, a member site, or a dropdown and links. And that is actually super helpful because imagine you want to have this drop-down menu up here and you have multiple services, and you can just choose a drop-down and say services. And then you have multiple pages under the service. Let's say service 1 and service 2. So that is actually how you build a really cool drop-down here. So if somebody hovers over the services, they will see service 1 and service 2. So that's really cool. Once you have built out all these pages, the next point on your list is to give them all a good URL and a good description. So what is that? It means that if you click on this little thing here, for each page you have settings, and you should never, ever leave a URL, which is kind of the ending, which comes behind your domain, in this weird way, like service-1. What is that? So it should always be called after something that people would also Google, because it's going to show up in the results if somebody Googles after your thing. So there's a whole lot of other topics to be aware of in terms of search optimization. We're not going to go into it, but the basic assumption is that you have to think about what it is. So if I have a page which shows my service, which is brand consultation call, this is one kind of service that I do, I can choose to either say brand consultation call or brand consultation if I'm not sure if it's going to be a call in the future or something else in this, which is really, really important. And there's some extra features here. You can see you can either duplicate the page or set it as a homepage. But the most important for now is to have the SEO settings set up here. So you should always set it says optional, but I think it's not optional. You should always set a title and a description, which is just a very short one. And if you don't have no idea, you can always have AI as a little help. You can just describe your business to whatever tool you use, maybe ChatGPT, and say, hey, I'm this and this person. This is my offer. This is my brand personality, blah, blah, blah. And I have this page, which is about my brand consultation call. Can you write me an SEO title and an SEO description? Usually it will be much better than what you as a beginner can do. So my advice is just to not wing it, just do an AI thing. And if you know what you're doing, of course you can do it yourself, but otherwise just do it. And then all your pages should have these very important SEO titles and descriptions. Once you've done this, you go to search and you go to SEO. You have to go to the home and go to SEO. And then you can also do your general SEO appearance. So you click on SEO appearance and it will tell you in this moment, like you've built all your pages, everything's done, you get an SEO completion score, which means, okay, you have images with metadata, 0, and you have no alt text. So it basically offers to do all the stuff, which is interesting because now it understood, okay, I have consultancy services, but now it says brand consultation and wellness therapies. So you have to be a bit careful. So you should really first do this in the end when the website has some material to work with, because the AI is getting better. But if you have no idea, you can just like save and continue. And this is also a thing. The alt text it's kind of a description of the image. It is not shown, but it is for SEO and for accessibility reasons. And you basically have to check if it's correct. It's nice that it says that I'm a young woman. It's perfect. I'm still a young woman. They still consider me young. And then you go through this checklist. So I would definitely do this before you put the website online, because it is really important. And it is nice if you put the website online and Google has everything it needs. You know, they can kind of scan your website and they're like, oh yeah, she's doing brand consultancy and everything. So this is a thing which I would recommend to do before you set it online. Of course, you can always change it later or adapt it or whatever. So that is great. So read the checklist, add a favicon, and that is actually also one of the things that you should do. It was also in the settings, but you can also find it here. Otherwise, you can find it up here. A favicon is basically the little mini symbol which is shown if you Google something. It's going to be like the mini symbol, or also if you're in a browser, there's going to be these mini symbols in the beginning. Like for Google, for example, it's this thing. And in Squarespace, it is basically, I can show you if I go a little bit down with my window up here. The default for Squarespace as a favicon, you might have seen it, is basically this square thing up here. And this is Squarespace's own, it's their logo. So what is here is also gonna, like, this is the nice little panda up here. So you can add a favicon. If you have no idea what to do, you can basically just add a screenshot of one of your brand colors. That is the easiest thing to do. Or you can just have something from your own thing. So basically what I could do is, if I have chosen to do this color and I have no idea what to do, like literally no idea, I can just take a screenshot and have this as my favicon. It's still better than not having a cool favicon. Let me say it like that. All right, the next step is that you would need to go through all of your pages, check if everything works. If you have used any forms or any blocks which have like some extra settings, you should always check them out. For example, if you add a form, let's just add a form block. There is some like storage things, like to which email address should it be sent and all that stuff. So you have to check everything, because it has happened to a lot of like beginners in Squarespace that you have not checked all these things, and then you have customers who actually want to inquire and they have not the smallest chance to get through because there's a wrong email address or there's some mistake or something. So everything should be kind of tested. And the same with links. So if you put any link, like here, if you're in this little editor, you can link any group of words or word and just put a URL, or you can link between the pages in here. You can choose if it has to be a new tab and so on. So that is really cool. And you can also in the end edit your site footer and make it nice and have it have multiple sections, or have it have one of these, what is very modern to, let me check, this is a text and this is social links. You can have like consultant for brands. You can have one of these very, very modern and very on trend huge footers if you choose to do. But always think about what you want it to look like. But there you have it. You can have like a very fancy brand. This would be a little bit too much, so I would kind of delete this last part of this page. But you can definitely do these things. And if you have no idea what to do, you can always look at other websites and see what they did in the footer. I always advise to have the most important pages again in your footer, because you can see if somebody's on your website in the mobile, which is usually 70 to 90% these days of if you have B2C customers, users, and then you go on the hamburger, you can see everything. But once people scroll, they're like read the website. It is actually a little bit of a waste of space if you do not have your most important offers down here again. So what you're going to see, and that is getting much bigger actually right now, is that people are putting their most important pages down there again. So what you would do, I'm just going to start here in the big view, is that either in the same section or a new one, that you're going to put your most important pages again, even though you have them in the main menu. So I'm going to be like service 1, service 2, and have them nicely arranged here. And then I have my about page, about, what is happening here? There were 2 blocks on top of each other. So about Victoria, FAQ, and then you can have your email or whatever. But the most important thing is the following, that once a person is all the way through a page, whatever page they're through, some people always ask me like, what is a like back to top button? How can I do it in Squarespace? And my advice is always that your website should not need a back to top button, because people should always be able to see the next step. So even if you have no call to action in the end, which I would always put, by the way, you can have a footer which always leads people back to your most important pages, which is going to be where the money is. Now, of course, you can make it nicer and all that stuff, but it is very important, in my opinion, to have a very good mobile view. And it actually looks very nice in the footer if you have it a little bit nicer, and you can put like a testimonial here or a photo or whatever. There's a lot of websites that are just about footers. Actually, it's really interesting. Once you've done all of these steps, you should have your pages, you should have all the settings, you've tested everything. Then you can go back into the very last settings, which we shortly looked on in the beginning. So if I go back to home and to the settings, you can do the final steps, which is actually great. You can do all the cookies and privacy things. Depending on which country you're in, there's going to be specific rules about privacy and all that stuff. So make sure that you have the pages which you have to have and which are required by law. So there is a huge difference in countries if you're in Europe, if you're in the US or whatever, but usually you need to have some kind of terms and conditions depending on if you're a web shop or not. You have to have a privacy statement and all these things. And in some countries you need to have an imprint. So always be sure to know, and if you don't know, Google it, what your country is requiring you to have. So before the website is online. Favicon we already did, and then of course, as your country kind of requires, you can set the cookie and data privacy. So basically what it does is they can choose a cookie banner, how it looks, what is in there, if people can accept all, if they can choose all their preferences. Then in a lot of countries, like European countries, you have to put the activity log on not toggled. And then you have to restrict cookies, but that really depends on the country you're watching this from, which is going to be different from country to country. Then you go to I'm gonna stay and save here. Then one of the most important things, of course, is that before you set the website online, I would always advise you to connect the domain. So you can either get a domain through Squarespace or use a domain that you already own from whatever provider. As long as you can choose and change the DNS settings, it's super easy to do. You can basically just use a domain I own, choose what the domain is, and if you have one of the standard providers, it will kind of guide you through the things. And otherwise, there is a direct DNS connection through almost every domain provider that there is. Or you can also choose to get a domain through Squarespace. They have a specific discount right now. It's, I think, the first year free. It depends on which country. And you can just check that out. The only thing is that some people prefer to have another provider. And usually all our customers have a different provider, because then you're not bound to having your emails through a Google Workspace, which is an add-on in Squarespace, which you have to buy. There's some workarounds, but it makes it a little bit difficult. So if you'd ask me, like, what is the best domain provider? Most people I know have their domain somewhere else, but it doesn't make a difference. So you can just like choose whatever fits for you, and then you should connect the domain here. Why now? Because when your domain, like, let's say I have the domain victoriabrandconsultant.com. When you connect it for the first time, it will need up to 2 or 3 days to connect the domain, and everything should be fine. And the so-called SSL certificate, which is basically the little browser symbol, and which makes the encryption and everything safe, it can take up to 2 or 3 days just to be set up. And especially if you're doing a website and send it to people, you want them to be able to see it and reach it. And it's going to be blocked in browsers as long as it's not safe. So the SSL certificate needs to be toggled on in a way, and that can only be done once you have your domain connected. All right, and that's it. If you went through the whole checklist and everything, you can go to the setting part, go to site availability, and upgrade to publish, which means you buy your subscription, and then you can set your website public, which is a big moment, I know. And I've been like in the process of doing, like, I'm not sure if it's hundreds or thousands of websites at this point with people setting up their websites, and it's always a very glorious moment. So that is the moment where you can really toggle that on. And as I said, upgrade to publish is only available when you pay. I mean, that is very easy and straightforward. Once you want to go online and have no password protection on your site, then you have to pay for the Squarespace subscription. But as I said, if you choose to go through our link and everything, you get a really nice discount, which is always cool for the first year of your subscription. And then you can see how your new business or venture goes. So there you go. You have your new website set up and you're live. Once you've set it up, one last step is actually that I would advise you to really get it into Google as well. So there is a tool called the Search Console, which is just you Google Search Console, like Google Search Console, and you're going to find it. It's cookie free, it's free, and it basically enables you to see how people kind of find you through organic results, which means they're Googling, like people who Google something, and it will only count the data from the time that you kind of do it. So you should do it right after your SSL certificate is gone through, your website is online and everything is nice. And that was my tutorial about your Squarespace website. There's of course a whole lot more you can do, but this is the basic version, and I hope you have fun doing your website. I can really remember the first time I went on Squarespace.com. I think it was in 2017 I built my first website, and I became a Circle member and pro from 2019 on. So now I've built so many websites, but I remember the first time I discovered it, and I hope you're going to be as happy with the whole building process as I have been. And if you need any additional information or you have wishes for new tutorials, just put it in the comment. Then I can see what is most relevant to you guys and help you out in building your Squarespace website. Have fun.